So for today's video, we are going to be looking at basically how we can edit this contact. So without any much talking, let's get straight into it. The first thing we are going to do is we're going to go into our view contact page. We're going to be doing a couple of things. First of all, we are going to need a new table cell, and that table cell is going to have a button. So I'm going to have here a table cell, and this table cell is going to align to the right. Here we're going to have edit, and we're going to have another table cell, but I'm just going to copy this and paste that here, and this is going to be delete. So for the edit and delete, we're going to have two table cells here, so I'm going to copy this, and those two table cells are going to take our key, or basically the row.id, as their IDs. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get rid of this, and I'm going to import a button from React Materials. I'm going to say React Material UI. I'm going to check out for a button. Yep, right here. And I'm going to scroll down to this. So let's just import this so we can have access to this button. Let's import that here. Yep, so we could look at something like this. Right. Oh no, not Fab Navigation. I just need a normal button with an icon. So, yep, let's look at something like this. Yes. And we're going to look for two icons. First off, we're going to import the delete icon. So let's just import that in here too. And we are going to take this button and right here. So this is going to serve as our delete button. And I'm going to copy this. Oh, sorry. And I'm going to copy this table cell and paste that table cell. Change this to edit. And we'll also need to change the icon. But basically, we're having classes is not defined. So we'd have to get rid of this class name or these styles here. So now let's save that as we've gotten rid of the styles. And yep, we have delete and we have edit. I'm going to change this color from secondary to primary. Change this from secondary to primary. Save that. And we're going to change the text. This is going to be edit. And this is going to be delete. And for the IDs, we're going to use row.id. And for this delete too, for the ID, we're also going to use the row ID. Now save that. So now we have our delete and our edit button. The next thing we want to do is, once the edit button is clicked, we want to load a new view. So how we are going to do this is pretty simple. We're going to attach an on-click event handler to our edit button. So here we're going to have on-click, and this on-click is going to be this dot load edit page. And now we will have to create this function. But before we do that, let's also attach another event to the delete here. So I'm going to attach another on-click event here, and this is going to be this dot load delete, or this dot delete contact. So for this dot load edit, we're going to create the event, the function here, right below this onChange event. And we're going to pass our event, and we are going to say let id be equal to e.target.id. And we're going to just log that to the console now. ID to the console. Now we save that, head down to our browser. I'll have to inspect this to be sure. And we have an error here that says React does not recognize the start icon prop on a DOM element. It's failing to recognize our start icon, and probably that's the reason why our icons are not showing. And actually, to save me some time, I really don't want to go into debugging this. So I'm just going to get rid of this. Since our icons are not also showing, this may probably be the reason why. I'm going to save that and head back, and yep, we have none of the errors. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stretch this a bit. And if I click on edit, on the console it returns blank. And so since that didn't work out, we were not able to get the ID this way, we could go another way. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to say E, alright. So we are simply creating a fat arrow function. Now we're assigning the fat arrow function this value, and the reason we're doing it this way is so we can be able to pass parameters to this function. And the second parameter we're going to be passing after the E should be the row.id. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come here and we're going to have ID. So I'm going to just get rid of this. And I'll save this. Now go over to the browser, and now let's see. If I click on edit, it returns the value of the ID. So now that we have done this, what we are now going to do is we're going to create a new view here. And that view is going to be called edit contact.js. And for edit contact.js, we are going to be creating a new class-based component. So here we are. I like a div instead of this. So I'm going to save this. And I'm going to call this component edit contact. And in our view contact.js, what we can now do is we can now redirect once edit is being clicked to this component. But before we do that, let me just add the text here and say this is the edit component. And I'm also going to add this to the route. So I'm going to go to our home.js, and right inside of our home.js, sorry, not our home.js, our dashboard.js. Right side of our dashboard.js, I'm going to import edit contact, and this is going to come from component dashboard and edit contact. And I'm going to add this to the route. So I'm going to say I'm looking for the exact path, and I'm going to use double backtick here, and we're going to do props.match.path, and we're going to call this edit contact. And this is also going to take a last parameter, which is going to be dynamic, which is basically going to be the ID of whatever is being clicked. And the component that we're going to be sending this to is going to be our edit contact component. And right now I'm going to save this. And what we can now do is right in here, we can now come down here, and we're going to use this dot props dot history, and we're going to say dot push, and we're going to push into slash dashboard slash edit contact, and the last parameter is going to be the ID. So what I want to be sure of now is if I go over to the index.js, right? No, app.js, sorry. So if I go over to app.js, yap slash dashboard. So we can just move over here now. And if I click on edit, you can see it takes us to slash dashboard slash edit slash contact slash 8. And it's supposed to be rendering this H1 here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to populate that as many times as possible. And I'm going to look at that again. Not contact, sorry, contact. So now we have this. Yes, this is the edit component. And for our edit component, it's going to look a bit similar to our add contact here. So what I can do is I'm going to copy everything here. Okay, so from let's just copy from here down to this div here, and I'm going to get rid of this. So right in here we have the whole edit contact structure, which is basically just a replica of what we had on the add contact. So I'm also going to copy our props here. So for our constructor, I'm going to copy this too, and I'm going to paste this in here, and I'm going to change this to say edit an existing contact. Alright guys, and what I'm also going to do is I'm going to copy a couple of things from here. This handle change, which is for the text input, this get base 64, which is for converting from blob to base 64, and file transform, and I'm going to also copy this handle submit too. And I'm going to paste them here too. For this, I'm just going to keep this simple for now, and maybe just lock the value of the state. We get a couple of errors here. Let's say text field is not defined. So what I can do also is to import text field button, connect her other component, and I'm going to add that here. I'm going to save that, and I'm getting an error of contact response. And let's see. Yep, we're going to get rid of this for now. Save that, and everything looks fine. So this is what we have. But I'm going to do one more thing here too, which is the fact that I want to show the image. I want to display the image. All right. So I'm going to have an image tag here. But what I'm going to do first is I'm going to look for a default image. And this default image is going to be showing whenever we don't have an image. So I like this one. So I'm going to save this, and I'm going to call this default img. Save that, and I'm going to show in Finder, and I'm going to just cut this. Sorry, not the name. Let me just copy instead. Copy default, and I'm going to move this to React and Contact Manager inside of our source. Let me see our project structure. Just a second. So in our source we have component, we have store. So here I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to call this img within our source, and I'm going to head back here, and inside of here I'm going to paste item. So we have our default -img. So what I can do now is I am going to come before our input file, but before then let me import that image. So I'm going to import from, we're going to go img slash, we call this default image.png. So I'm going to call this default image.png, and I'm going to call this default img. Okay, so I'm going to save this, and what I can do here is for the initially I'm just going to set an image tag, and the source attribute is going to take our default img value, which we imported here, and I'm going to give this a class name and call this image restyle, and I'm just going to copy this and go to app.css, and I want to restyle this image. So I'm going to image restyle, and width should be 50, which should be 100 pixels, and height should be 100 pixels. And I'm going to save that and check out our application. And we have this image here, but it seems not to be displaying. And that is because we are importing this image the wrong way. So I'm going to get rid of these curly braces, save that, and sorry guys. Now we have this image displayed this way. I'm going to add a couple of more styles, like say margin top should be 3 pixels, and margin bottom should be 3 pixels. Saving that, and we still have it this way. So what I'm going to do is let's do something right now, and it's pretty simple. We are going to wrap this around the div, and we're also going to wrap this around the div too. Or we could just leave it since we are throwing in multiple breaks. Now, yep, we have this. What I'm also going to do is, let me look at that again. So this does not look pretty good. The distance between these two images are not so good. So let's see if I added 10 pixels. Right, so I'm going to increase that to say 7 pixels each. 7 pixels top, 7 pixels bottom. And now we get some more space. So now that we have done this, the next thing we want to do is we're going to load the first name, the last name, the email, the phone number, and if the image is present, we'll load the image. If the image is absent, we'll load this image. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go into our contact service, and in our contact service, we are going to create a new function here, and that function is going to be called load single data. So we're going to export const load single data, and for this we're going to pass a single parameter here, which is going to be the ID. So we're going to be passing the ID here, and basically what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to say if ID is empty. Oh no, let's not pass ID, let's pass data instead, because what we're going to be sending is going to be an object. If I go into our API here and I go to load single data, let's see. Oh, not my console, sorry. So let's just do load, control load single. Or maybe I should just search that through. So now let's go to add contact, get paginated data, edit single data, delete contact, get single data. Yep, you can see here that we are basically passing just the ID. That's interesting. And if I go to if I go to API, the PHP, we are also passing the ID as a get variable. So I think we can do it that way. So let's just leave this as the ID. And now we're going to say if a ID is empty, do nothing else. If an ID is being passed, what we are going to do now is we want to say const HTTP will be equal to new HTTP service. And for our HTTP service, we're going to say return HTTP.get data. And we're going to call the URL, you see, let get data URL be equal to user slash contact slash, let's see what we call that, contact slash get dash single. So slash get dash single, and we're going to pass the ID of the content. And now once we have done this, we can then pass get data URL here, and as usual this returns a promise for us. So .then I'm going to pass data, and we're going to log that to the console.log of data, and we're going to return data. And for errors, we are going to catch them, and we are also going to console.log error, and we are going to return error, and we're also going to return error here too. I guess I forgot to do that. So now that we have load single data service, we can now go straight into the action, into our actions here in our contact action. And we're going to import, firstly of all, here we're going to import load single data. And we are going to need load single data here. So we're going to just copy this. And we're going to change load contact to load single data. So let me just change this to load single data. And here we're going to pass the ID. And we're going to also pass the ID here. And we're going to call this load single data and fetch single data error. Okay guys, we save this. And we're having an error here saying load single data. And that is because it's having the same name with our service which we imported. So I'm going to change this to load single data user. And I'm also going to change this to load single data user. And I'm going to save this. And everything pretty much is great. So I'm going to go into our reducer now. So let's go into our reducers, load single data and fetch single data error. We are going to do a couple of things here. I'm going to copy these two cases. So that's two cases. I'm going to paste them here. And we're going to have load single underscore data and fetch single underscore data underscore error. So we're going to change this to fetch single data error. And all this is going to be on load content. So I'm going to save that now. So right now we have every single thing properly orchestrated. What I can do now is I'm going to go into our edit contact. And what we want to do is we want to call this action, contact action, load single data user. But before we are able to call that, we have to do a couple of things. The first one is we are going to import. So we're going to import from. We're going to go into our store, actions, and contact action. And we're going to import load single data user. And we are then going to use our connect high order component, which we did import here, to wrap around our component so that it can be able to have access to, or basically we can be able to pass that as a props to this particular component. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to export default, and we're going to call the connect high order component. And let's just call this null first, null second, and we're going to call this component, which is edit contact. And for the two nulls, I'm going to say const. So let me not waste my time typing this. I'm going to go into view contact, and I'm going to copy this too. So map state to props and map dispatch to props. And I'm going to paste that in here. So we have map state to props and load contact, state.contact, load contact. And map dispatch to props, we are just for the meantime going to be handling just one of the dispatch. So we're going to call this load single data user, and it's going to pass an ID. And here too, we're going to call that load single data user, and it's also going to pass the ID parameter. Alright, so now that we have this, we are now going to call them in here in place of our null. So map state to props and map dispatch to props. So I'm going to save this, and we're having only one default export allowed per module. That is because we exported this. So I'm going to get rid of this. And now that we have this, what we want to do basically is once our component loads, we want to automatically basically perform the action. So in order for us to do that, I'm going to call a lifecycle method in class-based components called component did mount. So I'm going to call, let me call that right up here. I'm going to say component did mount, and for component did mount, what we are going to do is we're going to be getting the ID that is passed down as a parameter from our view contact right inside of our component did mount. So how we are going to do this basically is if I console.log this.props and I save that, once our edit component loads, I'm going to go to our console, and why am I getting, okay, here. So right here we have our history.length as 37, but that's not what I'm looking out for. What I'm actually looking out for is match, params.id. So you can see the params.id is returning the ID of this particular ID of the get variable here. So we want to get this ID. So we're actually going to destructure this ID from this whole thing here. Or we can still go by saying this.props.match.params.id, any of them. So I'm going to be destructuring it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say, I'm going to destructure ID, and our ID is going to come from this.props.params. And now that I've done this, I can now call this.props.load single data user, and I'm going to pass the ID here. Okay, so now once I save this and I get back over to our browser, it's throwing an error saying cannot read property ID of undefined, and that is because we are saying this.props.params instead of this.props.match.params. If I am correct, it should be match, .params. So if I head back here, we actually get an error saying load data, single data user in our action. And I made this mistake twice. So I'm going to change this to here. I'm going to change this to say, this is going to be load single data. Load single data. And now I can save that. And if I head back to our browser, you can see it is loading the single data specified for this particular user here. So now that we have successfully been able to fetch our data, and the next thing we want to do is be able to populate all these fields here as well as this with that data. And that's going to lead us into another lifecycle method called component will update. Before now, we would use component will receive props, but currently I think it's deprecated, if I remember. So we're going to be using component did update. So let's get now straight into using that particular lifecycle method. We're going to do this under component did mount. So I'm going to call this component did update. All right, and component did update. Here we're going to pass on the sync, and component did update usually takes two parameters. So the previous props and the previous state. So what we can now do is we're going to say if we're going to use the previous props. So the previous props dot first of all, let me log the previous props to the console. Console log previous props. Now let's just save that. Go back to the browser. And now let's see what we get. So we have previous props.load contact. So I'm going to say if previous props.load contact is not equal to the current props.load contact. So if the previous props is not equal to the current props, then we want to set some state here. So I'm going to say this is the set state. And for this, I'm going to start with the first name. Or basically, I'm just going to make this faster. So I'm going to copy all this. Email, first name, last name, profile, image, and font. And I'm going to paste this in here. And with the exception of this for now. So I'm going to say for email, we're going to have, oh, let me just leave it. Let me leave that in here too. So for email, we're going to have this dot props dot load contact dot data. Let's see. Oh, well, let me leave this way. Then let me log to the console this dot props dot load contact. And if I save that, I head over to the browser, and we have it this way. We have success, we have data, and then we have the parameters or the data. So I'm going to say here this dot props dot data, right? This dot props dot load contact, or let's make this a lot better. And we're going to say here, let single data be equal to this dot props dot load contact. And for email, we're going to say single data dot email. And before this is going to show, I would have to do something here. So what do we have email here? For this, I'm going to say for the value, so we have to set the value. So for the value, I'm going to say if this dot state. So basically, if the state of email value, or to say that this particular value is going to be either the state of the email value or it's going to be an empty string. Now, if I save that, and yep, right here we have namdi@gmail.com. So namdi@gmail.com. If I add an S here, I click on add contact, and let me add first name, last name, phone. You can see it still picks the updated value. All right, and the reason why we needed to add this to the value is because what is actually happening here is we are updating the state, and as we're updating the state, and we're updating the state once there is a particular update for either the props or the state. And now, in order for that to be able to take place here, we have to set this value, all right, the value of the text field, by saying we have to either set the value of the text field by the value of the state which has been updated. And if we don't do it this way by setting the value of the state to be equal to this or to be an empty string, and what is going to happen is that if we basically, let me get rid of this. If we basically get rid of this, all right, and now we save this and we go over to our browser, you're not going to see anything. And the reason why this is happening is because even though our state has been updated, if I come over here and I log this to this console, so console.log this.state. I log this to the console. You're going to see that our state has updated, but it has not been able to update on the view. And so for us to be able to make that update in the view, we have to come here and set a value. And we have to set the value to be either equal to the current state or an empty string. All right, so now that we have done that for email, we can now go ahead and do that for first name, data, dot first name. You can also do this for last name, dot data, dot last name. And we're also going to do this profile image, dot data, dot profile image. And for phone number, and now if I save that, head back to our browser, and we are only having one value being updated. That is because we have not set the value property here. So for this value, we're going to say this dot state dot first name or an empty string. For last name, so for the value here, we're going to say this dot state. Sorry, we're going to say this dot state dot last name or an empty string, and save that. And for email, we've already done that. For phone number, we're going to say value equals this dot state dot phone number. And for our image, let me just view that and see. Now you can see all the data are displayed. For our image, what we're going to do here is we're going to wrap this around this. All right, and we're going to do something really simple here. We're going to say this dot state dot image dot profile image. So if this dot state dot profile image is empty, all right, then we want you to display this. So we can just get that into a new line. All right. Else, we want you to display another image that has a source, and the source is going to be, let's head back to our browser and let's check out that it's going to be file_directory. So what I'm just going to do is, since I did that in view contact, I'm going to copy that here. to image. Yep, right here. So I'm going to copy this source and I'm going to paste that here. So basically this is going to be, what we can do is let's update this state too. So let's add another parameter here. And this parameter is going to be called file directory. And we're going to update that here too. We're going to say file directory. And this is going to be single data dot file directory. So dot file directory. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get down here. This is file underscore directory. So I'm going to get down here and I'm going to say this dot state dot file directory, and this is going to be slash profile image, and actually this is supposed to be yes, this dot state. And now I have not error. That's because we have not closed this. Head back to our browser and we actually have this showing us an undefined property, and that is because, let's see, go to view contact and we have an error here, cannot read property map, and this error is coming from, let's see, so let's get back, let's first refresh this page and we have that. Now if I click on view, we don't get the image. Now if I go back to view contact, we get this error. So what we're going to do is to be able to fix this particular error, I'm going to clear view contact. Basically I'm going to clear the state. So I'm going to go into contact reducer. What I'm going to call now is I'm going to create a value here and I'm going to call this case clear contact state. And for this I'm going to drop a semicolon here and I'm going to just return, and sorry guys, I'm going to just return from the state, the structure in the state, get load contacts, and I'm going to set this to null. So by setting this to null, I can now save this, and what we are going to do is we're going to head back into our contact actions, and before we perform any single operation that has to do with fetching contacts, we are first of all going to call, before we go ahead to perform the action, we are going to dispatch clear contact state. So I'm going to dispatch clear contact state, and I think that should just do. We should pass no response to it. And why do we have an error here? Oh, that's because we have failed to specify our type. So our type, so every single time I'm trying to manipulate load contact, I'm going to clear this. I'm also going to clear this. Now if I save that, we have an error here that says dispatch is not defined. That's because we are placing this above. So let's get this into where it belongs. And also, let's get this into where it belongs. And yep, now save that. Now head back to our browser and we have this. Now if I go over to edit, and we have another error here saying cannot read property data of null. Okay, so what we're going to be doing is, to avoid having one error after another, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of this first. And I'm also going to get rid of this too. And I'm also going to get rid of this. Search contact notes here too. Alright. And what I'm going to be doing now is I'm going to create a new state here in our contact reducer, and our new state load. I'm going to create a new state here. I'm going to call this load single contact, and we're going to work with load single contact. So I'm just going to change the value here, this to load single contact, and here load single contact. And That should be just about that. I'm also going to come over here in edit contact, and I'm going to change the props to load single contact. Change this to load single contact, and I am going to change that also here. So the props we're going to have here is going to be load single contact. The props here too is going to be load single contact. The props here too, load single contacts, just to avoid any further conflicts and excessive bug fixing and all that. So I'm going to console log. We're going to get rid of this. Save this. And now, if I head back here, we have this. Click on view contact, click on edit, and we have this. Go back to view contact, click on edit, and we have this. So everything seems to be working out just fine, except that the images are not displaying. So I'm going to inspect this element. And first of all, let me pick this user. And the image is not displaying. So let me inspect this element. And in inspecting this element, you can see that we have the value as undefined. And the reason why that is not rendering us the image is because the data that is being sent out to us is returning image file and not profile image. So I'm sure if I save that now, head down to our browser, and you can see we have the image. The image is pretty big. So what I'm going to do now is, I thought I restyled this. Let me just check that up a bit. So I'm going to inspect this image element. And when I edit contact, our image is called, let's see, right, there's no class name here. So let's just attach that class name here and call that image-restyle. Now if I save that, get over to my browser, and here we have the image.